Welcome to another episode of Owning It. I'm your host, Paya Wu here, where I talk to people who are forging it and owning their path and now empower other people to forge their own path and to own it too. I kind of forgot my line there for a second, so I apologize. And I'm so excited to have my guest here today, who is Sumeet Ahuja. I said it right this time, correct?
Yes, you did.
Good, good. And so Samit is the founder of Evoke Impact, which is a company that focuses on product, strategy, and innovation studio that focuses on skilling and enabling organizations through maximization impact through human capital. That was a lot. What does that mean, Samit, for anybody who is not in this kind of business? What does that mean?
Yeah, that was a test for you, right? Yeah,
I think this is the most like words I have said all week this week. So you really challenged me
yeah, I should
today.
simplify that for everybody. But at the end of the day, what we really believe is that, bridging the skills gap worldwide is important for shared prosperity. So that's really what we focused on. And obviously, within that, there's many ways to do it. My background has all been in product and technology. That's what I know. That's what I do best. I worked in very innovative companies and products. So my vision and desire through this company and the work we do is to really bridge that skills gap worldwide. So there's economic, social prosperity everywhere. So that's really what we do, and we drive impact in corporates, in startups, in academia, through education, training, workshops, consulting, and all of the above. So that's what we do. We try to evoke the right impact through the work that we do, and hence the name.
Mm, okay, I like that. I like that. And so you live in San Jose, correct?
I do.
Okay, so a lot of the startup area is like Silicon Valley, kind of around that
Yeah,
area then.
smack in the middle of it.
Right in the middle. Okay, all right. And so how did you come up with like the name Evoke Impact? And I think a lot of people like to hear the background story of how did you get here? What's your background? Because I checked a little bit of it. You are
Yeah,
an engineer
I am.
by trade. You went to Milwaukee, woohoo, to Wisconsin here. Milwaukee, which is a very well-known school for engineer, and then you went and got your MBA, which I noticed that a lot of engineers kind of go that route. Like, what is up with that route there?
Yeah, so real quick, my background obviously, I was born and raised in the Middle East region, moved to India for high school, and then very soon after that, I moved to the US for my undergrad in engineering at the Milwaukee School of Engineering. And right after that, I moved to the West Coast. So I've been on the West Coast here for pretty much my entire post-teen, post-undergrad life, for my career, for my personal life, professional life, and have worked in telecom, mobile, fintech, AI, blockchain over the last 25, 27 years with some top tier companies worldwide. And yes, typically you'll see a lot of people taking that path from engineering, but they want to shift to more of a non-engineering path, but a related path. And for me,
Mhm.
right from well, I knew that I wanted to build. So, I see myself as a builder of people and a builder of products. That's really what I do. And hence, I want a bit of a diversion in my path from core engineering to building products, being out in the field. And then that led me to USC in Los Angeles, got my MBA there. And after that, again, worked in all of these top tier companies. And along the way, I figured out that, my path does belong in helping people achieve what they want to do. And I noticed that the skills gap across the world, especially now with so many things taking place, from a geopolitical standpoint, social, economic standpoint, the world order is changing, not just now in this one year, but just overall. So that's been, the journey in the last few years, and that led me to figuring out, how can I do best to retake what I have to drive some impact? How can I create that impetus to evoke impact in organizations through people, through education, through training? So the word evoke has been playing in my head for years. and that became a natural name for the company. And of course, the extension of that was, okay, you're trying to evoke something to do what? To drive an impact. So the name
Mhm.
took its own shape and form and colors and logos, which you see here, and the name was born, Evoke Impact.
Yeah. You mentioned skills gap. Like, what were you noticing?
Mhm. Yeah, so I think we get so engrossed in the work that we do, and it's really important that you are receptive to the things that are happening around you,
Mhm.
not just what's happening for you, but also around you. And what I began to notice is that, like I said, I work for some large companies, some very credible names on the resume, and that's all great. And companies do well to appeal to the stock market and the stakeholders. They'll always talk about, let's democratize financial services or let's make technology the enabler for all of the world. But what I did see is that, I could give you all the money in the world if I could. I could
Mhm.
give you all the technology and the tools to level the playing field for everybody. But it won't help unless people on the receiving end have the skill set to make it last, to make it grow, to future proof themselves. And if you really think about what's happening in the world today, and I want to qualify today as not just this past few months or past couple of years, but in the last 10, 15 years, the world overall is very young. Half the world is below the age of 35. They have another 30, 40 years to work. And most of those folks are in non-developed countries. So the
Mhm.
skills gap is really important to bridge if we want shared prosperity across the globe, even for us here in the US and so on. We're all interconnected. I'm a firm believer that, we don't live alone. We're not the center of the world. So skills gap to me became an area that I wanted to tackle and contribute to. So
Mhm.
that's what we're trying to do with Evoke Impact is to really bridge that skills gap in the product function, in the go-to-market and strategy function, and in the corporate innovation side. So that's the lane I operate in. Um, really trying to make sure we do the best we can with corporates, startup accelerators, and in academia to help them bridge that gap.
Like that. It's like, it's not just one thing. It's a very macro. It's
Hmm.
very macro. It's not just one thing. And it's like a domino. You have to teach, like, it's like three things that you mentioned. You said the
Yeah.
corporation, the education system, and the people that all
Yeah.
impacts it.
I think, for someone who's going down this entrepreneurial path or solopreneur path, unless you have a bigger macro problem you're trying to solve, you'll only make so much progress. And for me, that big macro surface area has always been how do I drive this impact through what I do best? And what I do best is building products, it's building teams, it is in driving innovation. All the things I've done in the last 25, 27 years with in fintech and mobile and AI, it's all been very disruptive. And I sometimes think I'm a fool to have been in those places because they're so fast and it requires a lot of adaptation. But that's what I've gravitated towards in the last 25 years is disruptive phases of innovation across these companies, large companies. So yeah, that macro vision became a guiding force. And I was like, okay, how do I take all of this stuff and provide what I can? And what I can provide in my little world, from my little world, is my expertise in product and go to market and innovation. So I kind of married that gap that I began to see with my own expertise, um, and bring this offering. So we actually serve corporates. So there's large companies that I work with that are trying to rebuild or come up with their strategy, product related strategy for the future, or that are trying to upskill, reskill, future skill their leadership teams so they can think better about product. They can think better about innovation. Those are large corporates. I'm working with some startup accelerators and incubators in India, in the Middle East, in the US, and they are bringing in net new cohorts of companies, startups, very young startups that need support, coaching, mentoring, and hard skills to be able to build what they want to build.
Mhm.
And then lastly, I'm working with several universities. I teach in Barcelona, I teach in Bangkok, I teach in some
Mhm.
places in the US, and helping them really think about what curriculum needs to be built and served to their students. So it's the corporates, it's the acceleration and startup incubators, and then you have academia. But the common theme across all of them is that every single one of them, whether it's professionals and corporates, or whether it's startups, or whether it's students, they all need to be skilled or future skilled. So
Mhm.
that's where we come in, and we obviously have different kind of a plan and a program and a way to address this, different audiences. But that's what we're trying to do.
Wow. Okay. So you're like, when I say you're everywhere, I mean that in a positive way. It's like everybody needs you, your services, and your expertise.
It is, they always say, right, that no matter how the economy is, you're always going to need lawyers, accountants, and education.
Yes, you do.
Now, obviously, with AI, things are changing,
Mhm.
but I firmly believe that, like you said, there's no way to stand still. One of the CEOs I work for said, standing still is waiting to get hit. It's a,
Yeah.
and I take that to heart. It is so important that you're constantly moving. And it's more important even now with all the stuff going on. And like I said, the world order is changing. So companies, countries, people are being forced out of this slumber to move faster.
Mhm.
Technology is driving that as well with AI. But with all of this, unless you're constantly adapting, reskilling, future skilling, upskilling, call it what you may, you will fall behind. And I think the what you will see going forward is that the appetite for um, getting help to move faster will increase. It is just like people and companies and entities, if you will, sometimes struggle with, let's say, budgets, or accepting the fact that we need help to move faster or to be
Mhm.
better or to reskill and upskill. So, but once all that comes around, I think that the future is quite clear to me that you'll always have to adapt and get skilled for the future. So yeah, that's my hypothesis, and I will stand by it. And
You
so far,
know,
it's coming true.
yeah, you're so right. It's so easy to be left behind. Everything is so fast, and I know I spoke with your colleagues recently who was also on the podcast about AI, and it's regardless if you want it here or not, it's coming, and you either have a choice, you learn how to work, collaborate, or you will be left behind. And you're talking about fear. It's like the fear of being left behind, and so is there for companies, is there a need to be really fast and catch up with everything, or is there a way to learn and say, okay, is this the right thing for us, or maybe not?
Yeah. Look, you cannot be caught up in hype cycle. AI is here to stay, no doubt about it. Is it changing the world drastically and faster than any other thing that we have seen in our living life? Probably true. But it's not the right answer for everything. It's like one of those things. If I give you a sledgehammer, everything looks like a nail to you, right?
Yeah.
So right now, people are just thinking about what I can do with AI tomorrow. I
Hmm.
think folks, companies, corporates especially, are beginning to realize that it's not that simple. Every single thing cannot and should not be solved just by AI. There are things that are being done today that are using AI as a tool to get better and faster. But there are things that have to be done still using a tool set, not just AI in the tool set, right? So I think
Hmm.
the fear mindset is there. I do believe it's beginning to settle a little bit because there are valid questions being raised that do I really, really need to do all of this with AI?
Hmm.
Do I have the kinds of resources and the data and the talent and the platform and even the need to go down that path, right? Can I even drive ROI by going down this AI path? Or am I better off doing the right things within the company using AI, small things, but doing it right in my time and evolving along the way? So I think you'll see different flavors.
Mm-hmm.
There is no doubt in my mind that we will be transformed, within the next 2 5 years. Absolutely. Every single company is already using AI for anything from employee productivity to, faster sales cycles to risk management, to actually writing code itself. So there's all of that going on today. It's
Yeah.
not going away. So absolutely, I'm a big proponent of using. Like I said, I'm a sucker for disruption and innovation. That's what I've been doing all my life. So AI is, it's like makes my eyes light up.
Mm-hmm.
But is it the right solution for everything for everyone all the time? The answer is no. But you got to keep your eyes open and see what it can do for you.
Mm-hmm.
And this applies not just to companies, but also even for, individuals sitting at home
Yeah.
with their own habits that they have for consuming data, whatever they create, and so on. For students, for example, how
Mm-hmm.
they operate. So, short answer: the world is changing, but I think you have the control to decide if you want to get caught up in the fear and hype cycle.
Yeah.
Um, so you got to be smart about it.
Yeah. Do you do you give that assurance to companies that you contract with, or no?
So for me, I think the biggest thing that I get asked is, should we be going on this path? And if so,
Mm.
for what? And those are the right questions to ask rather than coming and saying, oh, we've changed this, we've changed that. I think you got to go back to the drawing board a little bit to really understand, what are the use cases? What's a problem space that you can effectively solve for using a new tool called AI? And if it is worth the time, going down the AI path is not simple. The
Mhm.
technology to use AI, to embed it into your workflows, to have the right sets of engineers and people in the company to be able to deploy and build is expensive. Do you have the data set that you will need, or will you have to spend millions of dollars to buy the resources and the infrastructure and the data if you don't have it, right? Do you even
Mhm.
have the inherent internal processes and operations, the guardrails, the governance processes to go down that path? I mean, just because I give you a surgical knife doesn't mean you're
Mhm.
going to start performing surgery everywhere, right? It doesn't work that way.
Right.
So companies that come to me that I work with, um, you need to first identify where can AI be most effective and why, and what the outcome of that is going to be. Now,
Mhm.
chances are that in most cases you will find something, but the path you take to deliver has to be a little bit well thought through.
Mhm.
So yeah, companies do ask a question, but I'm not, like I said, I don't like to give folks a sledgehammer and say go just start, playing whack-a-mole across the company.
Mhm.
Uh, but like I said before, companies are there's a bit of fear and hype cycle right now. But I also feel that people and companies and entities that are really have their nose to the grindstone right now, they
Mhm.
are seeing the valid questions being asked that do I need to be this fast? Do I have the capability and the need to do this? Or can I do this the right way? So I am seeing people asking the right questions. And my
Okay.
job as, the expert in this area
Mhm.
is to help them think through why you should do it rather than go and do it.
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay. So there's a thought process, asking the right questions about this whole thing. Like you said, just not a sledgehammer go in and like shake it and like tear everything
yeah,
down.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned hard skills. What about soft skills? Do you see that is such a needed skill? I think because for so long, especially in leadership, there's so much emphasis in hard skill, and of
Hmm.
late, I've noticed a lot about soft skills. Have you noticed that in leadership, and is that something that you talk about or teach also?
Yeah. So again, I'm a firm believer that, hard skills can be taught.
Mhm.
Hard skills can be refined over time through trainings and so on. Soft skills are way harder to teach.
Yes.
They come through experience, they come through the peer network, they come through who you collaborate with, who you associate with. Some of it you can argue is a nature versus nurture debate as well for soft skills. It's also a function of the education you get. It's also what's happening in your household. It's a lot more complex to get soft skills than it is to get hard skills. Not that it's easy to get hard skills,
Mm-hmm.
but soft skills are some of them is kind of out of your control.
Yeah.
So the whole nature versus nurture thing, which is why I like to bring that up even more so because it gets neglected. People are, oh,
Mm-hmm.
we can spend money, we can get trainers, we can do all of these things, but we also need to bring in people who can actually coach, mentor, educate you on how to build teams. How do you be more empathetic? How do you get the gravity around you to do storytelling, to drive influence and negotiate. And all this in the context of, like I said, I'm a product guy, strategy guy. But even for me, when I talk to companies or even within my profession of the last 25, 30 years, when I was building products, launching products, building teams, I have to sell internally. I have to be able to evangelize. I have to be able to storytell so I can get the budgets. I have to be able to drive influence so I can get the sign offs, right? Or I can build people. Like I said, I'm a builder of products and people. So soft skills they should never be on the back burner. Never. Um, I think what has happened in the last couple of years with the whole frenzy around AI and tech is that we are over biased towards let me get the AI skills, which we should. Absolutely. I spend about, close to 8, 10 hours minimum a week training myself on AI tools, right? But at the same time, I can't just give up on building myself as a leader. So
Mm-hmm.
I think you will start seeing that and this is true, by the way, even in universities right now,
Mm-hmm.
and there are a lot of research papers coming out from esteemed institutions that are talking about the necessity, not the need, but just necessity of training um, professionals and students and corporates on what is it that if I was to give all the work that we have right now to a tool or to a technology called AI and beyond, then what you have left with you to manage and do is people around you. Because the work is being done by something else, by a machine or by automation and software. What I'm left with is people around me who are thinking at a much higher strategic level,
Mm-hmm.
right? And those relationships have to be managed. And those relationships are managed through soft skills. So the need for soft skills cannot be underestimated. I can tell you for a fact that one of the um, one of the biggest clients I'm working with right now, without giving you the names, is bringing them up to speed on product strategy and so on, and the best from Silicon Valley. But one of the key things they asked me is that we want to get our leaders to learn from the best around how do you do storytelling. How do you actually build an empathetic muscle in these leaders so they can drive these teams while the work is being done by the teams and the tech? So, long way of saying that do not underestimate the power of soft skills. And that is
Mm-hmm.
certainly a part of everything I teach and train folks on.
Mm-hmm. You know, it, I'm going to ask this question and tell me if it's something that is feasible to ask you. Between IQ and EQ, what do you feel is more important?
Oh man, I always use this term, the balance of the cues. So there's
Mm-hmm.
IQ, there's obviously intellectual, quotient, there's emotional quotient, EQ. But then there are two more things that over the years I have begun to talk about. One is CQ and one is RQ. CQ being your curiosity quotient,
Okay.
and then RQ is your risk quotient. So to me, it's about IQ and EQ for sure. Those are the things that are talked about, in a classical intelligence fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's not enough.
No.
Are you curious enough? And maybe you can argue that intelligence goes with curiosity and so on. All of those things are kind of interconnected. But also your risk appetite. What's your risk quotient? So I think that for me personally, over
Mm-hmm.
the years, it's been a balancing act of IQ, EQ, CQ, RQ, and all. And I would say that, at points in your career and life, it'll never be fully balanced, right? Something will always be off a little bit higher, something's lower because of the work you're doing, because of the actual phase of life and career that you're in. And it's okay. I think the imbalance can be okay as long as you know how to bring it in balance. So do we need a balance? Absolutely. Does it mean does it have to be 50-50 or 25-25-25-25 all the time? I don't think that's true. But you have to be able to determine what it is that's going to work for what you're trying to accomplish. If you're working in as a counselor,
Mm-hmm.
if you're working as a therapist, if
Mm-hmm.
you're working directly with people, um, maybe you could argue that your EQ should be at a 60 and your IQ should be at like a 40-60-40 balance. Sometimes it become 50-50, right? Depending on who you're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with. So depending on your personality, your traits, your profession, your phases in career and personal life, I think that can vary.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, it has to be a healthy mix of all of the above. Yeah. So you got EQ, IQ, CQ, RQ.
I like to see the CQ, the curiosity, which I think goes a lot with the EQ.
Yes.
And I can tell you from personal experience, a lot of people do not have EQ and QR as leadership. Just my experience. So not bashing leadership out there, but when there is an imbalance, how do you as a coach consultant, how do you teach them to find the balance?
That is hard. I think my job as, a product and a strategist and an innovation person is more so to really shine a light on what I think would be the right path.
Hmm.
It is also to show the mirror that we are, this is who we are right now, this is what we're up against, and this is where we need to go. And then see where that organization that's maybe building a new product, or maybe they are in the process of transforming internally, or they're in the process of taking their teams to the next level of future skill sets. So for me, it's a matter of finding and identifying um, what those strengths are today. I'm a
Hmm.
firm believer that at some point, you have to play to your strengths. You can, fill in the gaps for sure, but my belief is that playing to your strengths is what is most important. So when I work with organizations and people and individuals and so on, how do I help them build this EQ, IQ, and CQ, RQ? Is first of all taking almost like an inventory of where we are and where we want to go,
Hmm.
and you need to make it objective. A lot of these things, when you talk to people, companies, and organizations, if you make it more personal, then the path gets a little harder because it becomes me versus you, a personality thing, and so on. So I think as long as you can make things a little bit more data driven, more objective, with validation, with examples, case studies, and so on, to say, this is something equivalent to your situation, and this is
Hmm.
what happened here. So my belief is that I could tell you all I want about what I want you to do.
Hmm.
You probably ain't going to do it, right? But I like to use third party resources. I like to use help from resources on the outside, what I call
Hmm.
third party validation.
Hmm.
So I think the best way to get somebody to do something is to obviously, take that inventory and audit, but also show them proof and validation that it's been done by whoever, whatever, through this kind of method. So it's not about me going and saying, "Hey, your IQ is low. You need to go and take that cognitive test and improve by taking these classes."
Right.
Um, and similarly for EQ. But there are
Hmm.
ways to teach. There are ways to surround yourself with the right philosophy and the right people and the networks, where through osmosis, through training, you begin to step by step get to a certain point. And I've seen that. That's exactly what we've been doing with some of the in some of the work that we do with corporates, is to bring you the best of the thinking and the actual execution that, from my experience, we can bring to you, and then let's incrementally get that better and better and better.
When you were talking, it almost sounds like you were a therapist because the work that you do sounds a lot like the work I do. And like being a therapist, gathering
Yeah.
information, the psychosocial, the diagnostic assessment, and kind of going from there. Except it's yours is like very analytical and numbers
Hmm.
and so yeah, it's like you go in there and you're trying to is it dissect and kind of like when you said strengths, work play
Yeah.
on their strengths and not their weakness. I don't want to say weakness, but really work on the strengths and build up the strengths. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting way to say it. Everything at the end of the day, the work that you do, the work that I'm doing with my company, again, I happen to be in the product and technology space, working with, whether it's, working with fintechs or whether working with, AI and blockchain companies. At the end of the day, we're trying to help make a difference, right?
Mhm.
We're trying to drive impact, or as I call it, also evoke an impact through the work that we do, so something else can be better. Like I said, I strongly believe in shared prosperity, and that's what we want to do. So in that regard, am I a therapist to a certain degree? I probably am.
Mhm.
Um, but that's a good way to, interesting way to put it.
Yeah, yeah, you're like a
Yeah.
therapist. Right? Yeah, but really, it really is. And so I think one of the things that people like to hear is people's
Mhm.
journey of how they got to where they are. And, some people, I talk to some people like, I always knew this was my path to be an entrepreneur. Other people say, I did not want to do this. People kept pointing it out to me. And I finally accepted that this is what I was meant to do. What was your path to be where you are today? Were you kicking and shouting, or, were you like, I always knew I was going to do this? Or, like, what was your circumstance for you to
Yeah.
find Evoke Impact?
Yeah, I certainly wasn't born as an entrepreneur. I wasn't born into business. I didn't have an apple fall on my head, and I certainly had an aha moment. None of that.
No,
My
nothing like
path,
hit your head. You're like, I'm going to
no,
do this. Nothing like that, huh?
no, there was no magic pixie dust floating around in Silicon Valley that I was breathing in. My path, in most cases, as you said, you said earlier, like engineering, MBA, there seems to
Yeah.
be a conventional path. So I was on a conventional path, but I think, um, what you would see in my background with all the companies I've worked for, all the things I've done, it may seem like, oh, wow, this is a linear path from here. You became successful in your career, but there's so many layers behind that, right, that are
Mhm.
invisible. So my path has been anything but linear. So for me, I don't think it happened on one fine day. I just got up and said, you know what, I'm going to form Evoke Impact. Um, it's been a summation of many serendipitous things over the years, people, events, incidents, adventures. And I always say, sometimes you make decisions, but in most cases, decisions are made for you, especially
Mhm.
when you're working, right? And so I was on that path, but I think going back to the whole IQ, EQ, CQ, RQ thing we talked about earlier, I mean, I've always had this curiosity about certain things
Mhm.
that, what if this, how is innovation happening? What's happening in the world at a global scale, as opposed to just in my little box working for the large companies in Silicon Valley. And I would say that, there was no one hard right turn for me, but, slow incremental turns here and there, and a reset and a balance and a reset and a balance. But I guess over the last 10 odd years, I began to get more involved in thought leadership around product and strategy. Things began to organically come to me. They, hey, can you help this startup? Or can you coach and mentor this organization? Speaking at events, doing, podcasts,
Yeah.
some teaching opportunities. And then slowly but surely, you begin to realize that there's a lot more that you can do and offer. And in that process, you begin to believe a lot more. You begin to question yourself lesser. The imposter syndrome begins to fade away a little bit. It always stays, but it begins to fade. And for me, I would say that began to happen over the last 10 odd years. I also began to start, invest in companies. I became an advisor to a lot of companies, and I began to see my own strengths a lot more than I was earlier.
Mhm.
And About 4 years ago, I said, you know what, I got to get this a much bigger show. And by the way, I was working full time. It wasn't like I quit my job or I was doing anything conflicting.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I was doing was in parallel, in support, and it feeds off of each other. But a couple of years ago, some folks came to me and said that, hey, we really want you to spend a little more time in advising certain companies. So that became a little bit more tangible. I had some folks come to me and say that, you should really be thinking about, how you can take what you have and formalizing that into product strategy and knowledge you can share outside. And that led to some teaching endeavors in Europe, in Asia, in the US. And then I began validating my hypothesis. I traveled to Europe, I went to Asia, I was talking to folks in the Middle East, and I found out that the things I want to do can fill the gap, the skills gap piece. So it was a process to get to a certain point. But I certainly didn't wake up and just dive deep in and said, this is it, and everything else is gone. So I guess you could call me an accidental entrepreneur,
It, it,
or
it sounds like people pointed out your like strengths to you and
mhm.
encourage you. It's like, hey, we want you to do this, do that, and like go to Europe, go to Asia. I mean, that's a huge deal right there. Those are huge opportunities right there.
Yeah, and again, going back to, I'm grateful for all the feedback that I got. It led me to where I am. But I think at the end of the day, if you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, you have to be self-aware. You
Hmm.
still have to do your due diligence. You have to be able to go out, validate your hypothesis that if this is the path you're going down, is it going to be um, where you can make an impact? You cannot control the end outcome and the monetary success. So the thing I always say about being a solopreneur is that you eat what you hunt. You're responsible
Yeah.
for your
Mhm.
failures 100%, and you're responsible for your success 10%,
Mhm.
because you can't control your success, right? So I began to sense a lot of these things. So my RQ began to go up while my EQ, CQ, IQ were wherever they were. But that's what I was saying. Sometimes, depending on the phase you're in, things can change. But yeah, that was, the path that took me to where I am. And right now I'm in the deep end of the pool. It's things are happening.
Are you
I'm grateful.
needing? Do you feel like you're up like above water, or what do you feel like?
Depends on the hour of the day. It changes daily.
I'm sure every solar entrepreneur knows how you're feeling because as you're talking about all this, I'm like, yep, yep, I know what, yep, I know exactly what you're saying. You are responsible for everything.
Well, like I said, before this call, I was in a contract negotiation, and I was feeling, oh my God, am I just getting underwater here? But we got it done. And then, of course, this is, a great transition to another conversation. And then after this, there's a few other things today. But you live 1,000 lives in a day as a solopreneur. And I think that's the lesson that people need to understand, that it's not all gravy. It's not all a bow and tie on a nice gift bag. It's
Not
not.
all rainbows and
Um,
sunshines. There are days when you're just like,
yeah,
I don't know about you, but I say, what the hell? I say that a lot.
I say a lot more than that.
I was
But
trying to
like I
be
said,
nice.
yeah,
You can say whatever,
I,
there's no judgment.
yeah, I build products, I build people, I build prosperity. I just keep that in mind. And yeah,
Yeah. When you say prosperity, what does that mean for you, prosperity?
well, you're right. It means different things to different people. But for me, I don't think you can put a tagline on it, or
Mhm.
a dollars and cents number on what prosperity means. But for me, as I shared before, I strongly, strongly believe that the world is interconnected. There's no way around it. And because I also have worked in the whole innovation space in many industries, that's what I do today.
Mhm.
That's what I also teach today to companies and in academia. there is no one center of the world. There is no innovation capital city of the world. Everything is diffused. Yes, Silicon Valley, and I'm very grateful for what I have achieved in thanks to where I live. But there is no one center of the universe. And like I said, if you really think about it, if we don't, this is going back to the whole macro vision thing we talked about,
Hmm.
if we don't solve for what's going to come in the next 4, 5, 10, 20 years with half the population of the world that is not going to be future skilled enough quickly enough to take this world forward for the next 30, 40 years, we will all be impacted, right?
Hmm.
The US is going to be, it is aging very quickly, right? Look at the number of people
Yes.
above the age of 55 and 60. It's insane,
Yeah.
right? Look at Europe. And then you start looking at Asia, Latin America. The average ages are 25, 28, 30, 35. But what they don't have is a sense of prosperity, the sense of
Hmm.
having, um, have you solved the basic needs? Are we strong enough to drive the next 20, 30, 40 years? And the only way to do that is through the work that people like me and others are doing is to skill and move it forward. Um, and that will lead to prosperity. And again, I don't mean money or accolades
Right.
or jobs, but the starting point has to be something that's a little bit more tangible. Like it's the skill set that you
Hmm.
have. So to me,
Hmm.
when I say prosperity, is I want to drive that level of fulfillment for folks across the world. But the path to that is through upskilling, future skilling, and in that, my lane is product, it is AI, it is it is innovation. So that's how I see the world and the work that I want to do
Yeah.
and drive prosperity.
Yeah. Beautifully said. And so, for anyone who is 35 and under, we have a long. I'm over 35, thank God now, but that's a long time to work. And so, for anyone who's under 35, what skills do you think they need to have? We talk about prosperity. Like, what are some prerequisites that you need to have to get to that prosperity?
Oh wow.
I'm sorry, I'm asking such
That's
hard
hard.
questions here. So.
Yeah. So look, I'm a technologist, I'm a product guy, like I said earlier. So I strongly believe that, like it or not, believe it or not, we will all live and are living and live more so in a technology world regardless. You can fight
Mhm,
it, you can hate it, but the stronger we become and more adaptable we become and less uh, fearful we become of
mhm,
technology, the better off we are going to be. And in that regard, for people who are under 35, and let's say you're, midway through your career or getting into your career or you're getting into some kind of education mode in colleges, you have to have hard skills. And this is my belief. It's a very classical conservative belief
mhm,
that um, analytical math skills, um, English skills, because we still run in English across the world in terms of majority of the business that is conducted. Yes, there's different languages, but I always say from a hard skill standpoint, your ability to have analytical, mathematical skills. Second is language,
mhm,
English being one of them,
mhm,
non-negotiable, absolutely non-negotiable. And with all of this, of course, you will learn coding and so on, right? And then on the soft skills side, which you asked earlier about the soft skills, um, I think that it is increasingly important for people in companies, not just in students and universities, to through experience and training, learn more about communication across borders. Because there is no way that you're going to be working only in the silos in one area. You will be communicating with the world. So how do you communicate? Verbal, written, body language, all of
mhm,
those things are super important. Um, Being able to influence and negotiate is super critical, super critical. And I think those kind of skills don't get taught early enough in careers or in school. So on the soft skills side, you have that. But in all of this, the most important thing, and I was talking to someone last night, and I said I actually really feel bad for some people in their early days right now because everything is moving so fast.
Mm-hmm.
So hard skills, soft skill, but you really need to have resilience,
Yes.
um, the ability to adapt very quickly. You
Mm-hmm.
know, my daughter is a freshman in college right now, and I can tell you right now that what she's training for right now, those jobs are going to be gone when she graduates in 3 years, right? So how do you keep on adapting, being resilient, and so
Yeah.
on going forward? So I think it's a package of your hard skills, your soft
Mm-hmm.
skills, and your behavioral traits that become even more important. And I think we need to get ready for a future where most people will have multiple sources of livelihood. And I'm
Yes.
strongly advocating that for anybody that I meet, including obviously for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Is don't lean on just one thing, um, because right now the opportunities to do multiple things at the same time is increasing through
Yes.
technology. So that's the way I see things moving in the next couple of years and faster every year.
If I were a young person right now, I would have so much fatigue with everything you just said. Like, how do I keep up
Absolutely.
with this? And your daughter's a freshman, and you said in a few years she'll be behind. I, I guess like
Yeah.
I can see the I don't say disparity, but I can see why young people are like, why? Like, I'm never gonna be able to catch up.
This is exactly right. And this is why there is fatigue setting in right
Hmm.
from kids are like 16, 18 into the early careers.
Yeah,
And I don't blame them, which is why I said I really feel for this generation right
me
now
too. Yeah.
a lot more than I do for others because they are getting hit with things that are no one saw coming at this pace.
Yeah.
Which is why going back to what I said earlier, is if somebody can figure out truly what their strengths are and build on that, don't don't hesitate to take a non-conventional path if you can. If it leans into your strengths, don't do it just because you want to do it. Don't just say it because an influencer said it on TikTok. So my
Sorry.
message,
When you
yeah,
say TikTok and influencer, and unfortunately, a lot of kids are getting that. And if your daughter were to say, "Dad, I want to take an unconventional path," would you be supportive of that?
it requires a conversation. What is it? Is it a blind decision? So I would say that people, should be able to build enough of a coalition around them. They should allies, family, friends, peer groups really understand what they are good at.
Mm-hmm.
It's not simple to do, but yeah, I think we will have portfolio careers. These kids, these professionals will have portfolio paths, and I think that's fine as long as you are feeling fulfilled. If it's paying the bills, obviously, um, and you can build from strength to strength.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what I am seeing today in a lot of people in their 20s, late 20s, is almost kind of a resignation that this is the way it's going to be, and I'm happy with living within my means and
Mm-hmm.
just doing my vacation and the whole Gen Z conversation, which we don't need to get into,
That
but
could
we
be
need to show
another
them.
conversation
Yeah, we
itself
need
in
to we need
another
to show them.
episode.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we need to show them that this is not a this is generational. The same
Yeah.
thing was said when, the first car was made or when the internet came around, that things will
Mm-hmm.
just blow up in our face. This is
Yeah.
just that phase. So there's
Mm-hmm.
always hope. Like I said, I'm an innovator, I'm a builder. I would not be doing what I'm doing unless I had that absolute belief that things will always be better.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so you got to have that mindset. You got to
Right.
believe in it. You got to move forward with it. You need to play to your strengths. You need to build your coalitions around you, and obviously, work smart.
Yeah. Yeah. It is right. It is all about your mindset. And I too promote the unconventional path, especially for young adults who sometimes they need to figure out what it is, what their strengths are, and we're not allowing them to figure out their strengths. And so they have all this fatigue. So I'm glad that your
Yeah,
daughter has a father like you who would promote that, if that is having the conversation first, of course. So yeah.
yeah. Not perfect, but trying.
What other
Mhm.
like last words of feedback would you give to people who, about your work or just what do you feel like is important for people to know
About me
about
or
you, about the work you do, what you feel is like what do you feel is wisdom that everybody should know about, like anything.
oh wow. Well, I would say that, nothing is linear. That's the one thing I keep saying that that's become almost like a tagline from Sumi. That's like, I keep saying that. But and I think we have to become appreciative of that. We'd be hard pressed to find anything worthwhile that has been accomplished on a linear path in this world. You can go back 1,000 years. Nothing is linear. But I think we are taught in linear ways. Do this, that's the outcome. Go to school, that's the outcome. Go to college, that's the outcome. Or start a business, and that's the outcome. And we all think in linear ways.
Mhm.
Um, and we do that only because it simplifies the path to think about the path. But along that way, you also have to be taught, and we're not. Then guess what? You might be thinking that way, and you might be building your future thinking this is the linear path, but it's not going to be that way. So I think the key takeaway for me personally, honestly, and again, that's me. Again, it may not be applicable to the listeners, or it may be, is no one's life is going to be linear, professionally, socially, personally, financially, any which way. But you have to become accepting and embracing of that, because only then you can get out of that paralysis mode to act.
Mhm.
So for me, that's been a learning. Like I said, I wasn't born with, a silver spoon in my mouth, and I wasn't born and then an apple fell on my head and I had an idea to become successful. It's been a
Yeah.
journey. So
Yeah.
that's one key message that I would say, for folks that I'd like to lead them with. From me personally, I'm happy to collaborate with folks on your podcast or anybody that
Mhm.
listens to this, because I firmly believe in the mission that we Evoke Impact is on. That, like I said, I could give you all the money in the world, I can give you all the tech in the world, you're still not going to make it unless you're equipped to make that progress. So I welcome folks to reach out,
Mhm.
have a chat with me, and we can see what we can build together to drive companies, corporates, organizations, startups, academia to build better for impact in the future. So,
I like
but
that.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's so important when said nothing is linear. And we've been taught as children that everything's supposed to be linear. And when that happens, that's why we freak out. That's why our mental health is the way we are because everybody is expecting linear and we're not taught that things are not linear. So I
That's right.
love that that's your final words. Yeah. And so actually my final question for you is what does owning it mean to you?
What does owning it mean to me?
Mhm.
Um, I think owning it to me means obviously, you get the freedom that you want, but I think more importantly, it's you will eat what you hunt, right? So you are responsible for anything and everything that happens throughout every minute of your day. Um, Owning it to me honestly means that you're responsible for your failures 100%, and you're responsible for your wins and your success only 10%, because you cannot control your success. There's a lot of ingredients that go into all of this. But owning it, like I said, means being comfortable with that, but doing what it is to get that 10% to happen.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it means having the freedom to drive your path. Um, but that's been at least my journey of
Mhm.
owning it. I'm sure there's more people I can learn from.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Wonderful. I felt like I just attended your TED Talk. So
especially.
There's probably a future for you to do a TED talk because everything you said was very, again, inspiring, very accountability. And again, just saying it's okay. It's okay if you don't have it figured out. It's okay. Build out your strengths, and that is perfectly fine. And so many people need to hear more of this.
I'm glad I can help.
Yeah, yeah. Any final words before I let you go?
I think we talked a lot. We covered a lot of ground, so thank you. But my final words would be, I love collaborating with people who are like-minded, who want to solve the same problem that I am. So I just welcome anybody who wants to have a chat, shake hands, and build together.
You are the definition of a true innovator. I think innovators think the way you do. And when I hear you talk, it's like, yep, yep, we are going to have our ups and downs, a lot more downs than up. And that's part of being an innovator. So, yeah, thank you for sharing your story. And if people want to work with you, what is the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, obviously there's LinkedIn is always open source. Just send me a message, send me a note, or I'm happy if you want to send me an email. It's info@evokeimpact.com. That's info@EVOQUE impact.com. And I'll be happy to hear from you.
Okay. And I will include all of that information in the description box. So, Sumit, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I know I asked a lot of hard questions. Sometimes,
Yes, you did.
I do this so much that I don't think they're hard. And people are like, what? Why are you asking me all these like extra, extra whatever questions that make me think? And that's part of owning it is to really make people think about these things that probably don't get asked much. And so you find
It
out
is.
more about yourself and people hear more about you. They're like, I can relate to him. So again,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. Yeah. And I will include all your information and have a wonderful day. I know you are very busy and I want to be mindful. So if anybody is new to this episode or enjoyed this episode, please hit the like and subscribe button. And again, all of Sumit's information will be in the description box. So take care, and I will see you all next time, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.